August 10th, 1943. 12,000 feet above the rolling hills of Normandy, France, the drone of the RAF Sterling bomber's 4 engines cuts through the thin air like a relentless swarm of hornets, vibrating through the metal fuselage and into your bones. Inside the dimly lit bomb bay, converted into a feathered cargo hold, Lieutenant Commander John Pedder grips the release lever. His gloved hands slick with sweat despite the biting chill. The air reeks of oiled leather, pigeon droppings, and the faint metallic tang of aviation fuel seeping from the tanks. Below, through the narrow slit of a porthole, the patchwork of hedgerows and wheat fields stretches out under a canopy of scattered clouds, deceptively peaceful in the late summer haze. But peace is a lie here. German patrols prowl the roads, flak batteries lurk in the villages, and every shadow could hide a collaborator's eye. Pedder, a wiry man in his mid-30s with a mustache trimmed sharp as a bayonet, exchanges a nod with his co-pilot, Sergeant Ellis, whose face is pale under the glow of the instrument panel. They've flown these covert runs before, but tonight's payload is different. No bombs, no sabotage kits. Instead, 16 wooden crates line the bay, each humming with the soft coos and rustles of hundreds of pigeons. These aren't ordinary birds. They're the product of years of breeding at Mi-14's secret lofts in Buckinghamshire, selected for their homing instincts, endurance, and loyalty that no human spy could match. Operation Columba, the brainchild of eccentric intelligence officer Commander A.M. Williams, aims to turn the skies into a feathered postal service, dropping these avian couriers into occupied territory to rally the resistance and funnel secrets back to Britain. "Steady now," Pedder mutters, his voice barely audible over the engines. The plane banks slightly, evading a distant searchlight's probe from the coast. At this altitude, the risk is real. Luftwaffe night fighters could pounce from the dark, or anti-aircraft fire could shred the wings. But the mission demands precision. Release the crates over sparsely populated farmland, far from major towns like Caen or Rouen, where villagers might find them without alerting the Gestapo. Ellis adjusts the altimeter, dropping them to 10,000 feet. The bomb bay doors groan open, admitting a rush of icy wind that whips through the hold, scattering loose feathers like snow. You can almost feel the tension coiling in the air as the first crate tilts on its rails. Pedder pulls the lever, and with a mechanical clunk, the wooden box plummets earthward, followed by the second, third, and a cascade of others. Parachutes bloom in the night sky like ghostly jellyfish, white silk billowing against the stars, guiding the crates gently toward the ground. Inside each one, the pigeons, marked with serial numbers, inked on their legs and fitted with lightweight message capsules, shift uneasily, sensing the descent. Over 200 birds per crate, 80 crates in total for this drop. A living rain meant to seed hope across the French countryside. As the last parachute vanishes into the blackness, Pedder seals the bay doors and the Sterling climbs, banking west toward the Channel. "That's for the villagers," he says to Ellis, wiping his brow. "Let's hope they catch the message." Far below, in the hamlet of Le Mesnil, a cluster of stone farmhouses huddled amid apple orchards. The night shatters its quiet. Marie Duval, a 42-year-old widow with calloused hands from years of tending her small plot, pauses at her kitchen window, a lantern flickering on the table behind her. The blackout curtains are drawn tight, but a faint whoosh from above makes her heart stutter. She steps onto the porch, the cool grass damp under her bare feet, and peers into the darkness. A low thud echoes from the meadow beyond the hedgerow, followed by another and another, like muffled drum beats in the earth. Curiosity overrides caution. The war has taught her to fear the skies, but this sound is wrong, not the scream of a falling bomb or the growl of a Messerschmitt. Clutching a shawl around her shoulders, Marie slips through the garden gate, her breath fogging in the chill. The orchard path crunches underfoot, lined with gnarled trees, heavy with unripe fruit. As she nears the meadow, she spots it, A canvas parachute tangled in the branches of an old oak, its cords trailing to a splintered crate half buried in the soft soil. Pigeons flutter free, their wings beating against the night, some perching on fences, others scattering into the underbrush with surprised squawks. Marie freezes, her pulse racing. Are these escaped pets? Sabotage devices? She approaches cautiously, the scent of crushed grass and damp feathers filling her nostrils. Kneeling beside the crate, she pries open the lid with trembling fingers. Inside, amid straw bedding, a dozen pigeons huddle, their iridescent necks gleaming in the moonlight. Each wears a tiny aluminum ring on its leg, engraved with NERP, followed by numbers. National Union of Racing Pigeons, she realizes with a start, remembering stories from pre-war races. Tucked into a compartment is a pamphlet in French, smudged but legible. To the patriots of France, these pigeons will carry your messages to London. Feed them, hide them and report enemy movements. Attach notes to their legs and release them at dawn. Vive la France! Marie's eyes widen. This is no trap, it's a lifeline from the Allies. Her husband, captured in 1940 at Dunkirk, rots in a stalag. Her son hides in the maquis, smuggling arms through the bocage. For months she's whispered intelligence to passing resistors. Troop trains rumbling through the rail yard, U-boat supplies unloaded at Le Havre. But getting word out? Impossible, with Gestapo checkpoints everywhere. Now these birds offer a way. She gathers the pamphlets and a handful of pigeons, stuffing them into a burlap sack, her mind racing with possibilities. The village priest, Father Laurent, must know. He shelters fugitives in the church crypt. And old Jacques the baker, whose nephew fights with the Free French. Together they could turn Le Mesnil into a pigeon post. As the first hints of dawn streak the horizon, Marie hurries back to her cottage, the sack thumping against her side. In the distance, a rooster crows, and the pigeons coo softly, as if urging her on. Word spreads like wildfire through the village by mid-morning. Whispers over fences, notes passed in the market square. By noon, over 50 crates have been recovered from fields and woods around Le Mesnil and neighboring hamlets, yielding nearly 10 Euzeran pigeons. Villagers, hardened by occupation, see the potential. These aren't just birds, they're spies with wings, faster than any courier, uncorruptible by bribes or torture. In the church basement, under the flicker of candlelight, Father Laurent unrolls a map on a makeshift table. Marie and a dozen others crowd around, farmers, seamstresses, even the blacksmith with his soot-streaked face. "We start small," the priest says, his voice steady. "Troop positions, supply routes. Write in code if you must." The first message is scrawled on rice paper. Details of a panzer division massing near Bayeux, fuel dumps hidden in barns. Rolled tight and slipped into a pigeon's capsule, it's released from the steeple at sunset, the bird vanishing into the western sky like a grey arrow. Back in Britain, weeks later, the first pigeons begin arriving at mobile lofts near the coast, exhausted but triumphant, their legs bearing capsules that crack open to reveal the villagers' secrets. Intelligence officers pore over the notes, piecing together the puzzle of German defences. Operation Columba is alive, its feathered network weaving through the heart of occupied Europe, one flutter at a time. But in Le Mesnil, the real test looms. Can they keep the birds hidden from prying eyes, or will the shadows of the Gestapo descend? September 1943. The narrow lanes of Le Mesnil twist like veins through the bocage, where ancient hedgerows choke the fields in thorny embrace, shielding secrets as old as the Norman soil. Dawn breaks with a misty haze, the air thick with the scent of dew-soaked earth and fermenting apples fallen from overburdened trees. In the Duval cottage, Marie stirs a pot of thin barley soup over a wood-fired stove, the flames crackling softly as pigeons coo from their new hiding spot in the attic rafters. She's rigged a makeshift loft from old crates and chicken wire, scattering grain pilfered from her dwindling stores. The birds peck at it now, their beady eyes watchful, as if they sense the peril woven into every rustle of leaves outside. You can hear the village awakening, the creak of cartwheels on cobblestone, the lowing of cows herded to pasture, the distant bark of a dog chasing shadows. But beneath it all hums a new rhythm, the flutter of wings and the scratch of pencils on paper. Marie glances at the ladder leading up, her face lined with resolve. Last night's release was just the beginning. The pigeon she sent skyward carried word of the panzer build-up, but more eyes are needed. The Maquis contacts in the woods have already slipped her sketches of rail lines, and whispers from the market reveal a German supply convoy due through the valley tomorrow. These details, once trapped like caged beasts, now have wings. By midday, the church basement becomes the nerve center, its stone walls damp and echoing with hushed voices. Father Laurent, a gaunt man in his 50s with wire-rimmed spectacles and a cassock patched at the elbows, presides over the gathering like a general in mufti. Around the scarred oak table huddle Marie, Jacques the baker, his flour-dusted apron swapped for a woolen vest, and a half-dozen others. Elise, the schoolteacher with sharp eyes and a network of schoolchildren as unwitting scouts. Henri, the blacksmith whose forge doubles as a radio hideout, and young Pierre, Marie's neighbor's son, barely 16, eager to prove himself after his father's deportation. The air smells of candle wax, mildew, and the faint mustiness of pigeon feathers clinging to their clothes. "Listen well," Father Laurent says, his voice a gravelly whisper that carries the weight of sermons unspoken. He unrolls a tattered map of the region, pinning it with a rusted nail. "The birds are our lifeline, but they're fragile. One loose squawk, one feather spotted by a patrol, and we're done. We divide the village into watches. Marie handles the eastern fields, Jacques the roads to Caen. Feed them barley and greens, keep them quiet at night. Messages must be brief, positions, numbers, timings, no names, no flourishes." He demonstrates rolling a scrap of onion skin paper around a tiny pencil lead, then slipping it into a capsule. The group nods, absorbing the ritual like a prayer. Outside, the occupation presses in. A Wehrmacht truck rumbles past the church, its canvas sides flapping, soldiers in Feldgrau uniforms scanning the streets with rifles slung low. The driver, Obergefreiter Klaus Becker, a lanky Berliner with a perpetual scowl, eyes the villagers warily. He's heard rumors, saboteurs in the hedgerows, wireless sets buried in barns, but Le Mesnil seems too sleepy, too broken by ration cards and curfews. Still, orders are orders. Patrol the drop zones after reports of airborne debris from RAF incursions. Becker's squad fans out, kicking at ditches and peering into orchards, their boots squelching in the mud. In the meadow where the first crate fell, they find parachute remnants tangled in brambles, but no crates, no birds. "Verdammt," Becker mutters, lighting a cigarette. Ghosts in the wind. Back in the basement, tension coils as Elise recounts her morning. A column of Opel trucks, laden with ammunition, headed for the coastal forts. She scribbles it down, plate numbers, escort count, while Pierre feeds a pigeon from his palm, the bird's beak nipping gently. "It's like they're listening," he says, awe in his voice. Marie smiles faintly, but her thoughts drift to her son in the Maquis. If these messages reach London, perhaps arms drops will follow, or a raid to free the prisoners. They release 3 more birds that afternoon from the church belfry, watching as they spiral upward, vanishing into the overcast sky like smoke signals from the gods. Weeks blur into a fragile routine. By late September, the pigeon network pulses with life. Villagers cache birds in haylofts, cellars, even hollowed-out church pews, their coos masked by the wind's sigh. Marie's attic loft swells to 50 strong, each bird a serial-numbered sentinel. One evening, as rain lashes the thatched roofs, she pens a urgent note. "Flak battery emplaced at crossroads, 88mm guns, 20 crew. Ammo from Le Havre." The paper, treated with wax to repel water, fits snugly into the capsule. She chooses a sturdy hen, her plumage a mottled grey that blends with storm clouds, and carries her to the ridge overlooking the valley. The wind whips your hair as you imagine standing there beside her, the chill seeping through your coat, the distant rumble of thunder, or is it artillery and echoing from the front? Releasing the bird, Marie watches it climb, wings cutting through the downpour. It banks west, toward the unseen channel, a lone voyager in the gathering dusk. Similar releases happen across the hamlets, from a barn in Saint-Pierre, details of U-boat pens, from a fisherman's hut near the coast, sightings of V-1 rocket parts unloaded under cover of night. The birds endure gales and falcons, their homing instincts unerring, drawn by the loft's familiar scents back in England. In London, at the MI-14 headquarters in a nondescript Whitehall basement, Commander A.M. Williams paces under the hum of fluorescent lights. The room buzzes with clerks and decoders, maps pinned to walls like flayed skins. A handler brings in a wicker basket, pigeons tumbling out onto perches, legs extended for the capsules. Williams, a bespectacled visionary with a penchant for ornithology, cracks one open himself. "Bayeux sector, Panzers confirmed," he reads aloud, his voice triumphant. "Dozens arrive weekly now, piecing together a mosaic of German might. Troop concentrations for the Atlantic Wall. Supply vulnerabilities ripe for sabotage. The RAF adjusts bombing runs based on these feathered dispatches. SOE agents receive coordinates for drops. Operation Columba isn't just surviving, it's thriving, with over 12 Azuzan birds dispersed, villagers turning their farms into avian fortresses. But shadows lengthen in Le Mesnil. October brings frost to the fields, and with it, heightened patrols. Becker's squad returns, this time with a sniffer dog, a sleek German shepherd straining at its leash, nose twitching at the air. They comb the orchards, the beast whining at the scent of feathers near Marie's gate. She stands at her window, heart pounding, a basket of laundry as her shield. The dog pauses, then moves on, distracted by a rabbit's trail. Close, too close. That night in the basement, Father Laurent's face hardens. "We need decoys," he says. "Scatter some birds to the marquee, train more locals, and watch for collaborators. Old grudges die hard under occupation." As the first snowflakes dust the hedgerows, Marie tends her loft by lantern light, the pigeons' eyes reflecting the flame like stars in exile. Each bird represents a risk, a hope, a thread in the web binding France to freedom. But whispers circulate. A villager in the next town betrayed a radio set, and the Gestapo's black vans prowl closer. The network holds, fragile as a pigeon's egg, but the storm brews. Will the wings falter before the invasion breaks? November 1943. The wind howls through the skeletal branches of the hedgerows like a mournful dirge, carrying the bite of an early winter that clings to the bones of Le Mesnil. Frost etches intricate patterns on the cottage windows, and the fields lie barren, stripped of harvest, their soil turned to iron under repeated boots. In the Duval attic, Marie huddles under a threadbare blanket, the lantern's glow casting long shadows across the rafters where her pigeons roost. The air up here is thick with the warm, earthy scent of feathers and scattered seed, a sanctuary amid the chill. But tonight, sleep evades her. The distant rumble of engines, Allied bombers perhaps, or German reinforcements, vibrates through the timbers, a reminder that the war's more inches closer. You can almost taste the tension in the stale air, feel the rough wood of the ladder against your palms as you climb to join her vigil. Marie's hands, chapped from cold and endless chores, stroke the neck of a sleek cock pigeon, its serial number 47 NERP, glinting faintly. This one returned from London just yesterday, its capsule empty, but its survival a small victory, proof the network endures. Downstairs the soup kettle simmers, but meals are scant now. ration cards yielding little more than watery potatoes and ersatz coffee. The pigeons share what she has, their coos a soft chorus that soothes her frayed nerves. Yet doubt gnaws. How many birds have fallen to hawks or patrols? How long before the Gestapo unravels the threads? By dawn, the village stirs under a leaden sky, smoke curling from chimneys like signals of defiance. Father Laurent's church bell tolls sparingly, its peals muffled to avoid drawing eyes. In the basement, the group assembles earlier than usual, faces gaunt in the flickering light of tallow candles. Jacques arrives first, his baker's arms laden with a sack of barley smuggled from a neighbor's mill, stolen under the cover of night, at risk of the whip. Elise follows, her schoolchildren's reports clutched like treasures, whispers of a new commandant in Caen, a brute named Hauptsturmführer Erich Vogel, who favors midnight raids and informant bounties. Henri the blacksmith grunts as he enters, his hammer-calloused hands black with grease from tinkering with a hidden shortwave radio, its static bursts tuned to BBC murmurs. "We can't dally," Father Laurent urges, his spectacles fogging slightly as he leans over the map. Red pins mark known German positions, flak nests at the crossroads, fuel depots in abandoned chateaux, even a V2 assembly site rumoured near the coast. The priest's voice, once steady, now carries an edge of weariness. Vogel's men are sweeping the bocage. Dogs, spotters, the works. Last week, they took 3 from Saint-Pierre for questioning. 1 broke. The room falls silent, the weight of betrayal settling like frost. Pierre, the young scout, shifts uncomfortably, his freckled face paling. He's volunteered for riskier runs, slipping through patrols to cache birds in remote barns, but the close calls mount. Once, a Wehrmacht jeep nearly clipped him in the mist. Marie spreads out a fresh report from the Maquis, a convoy of half-tracks ferrying artillery to the Atlantic Wall, escorted by motorcycle outriders. 12 vehicles, marked with the 21st Panzer insignia, she reads, her finger tracing the route. They'll pass the Valley Bridge at dusk tomorrow if we hit the fuel tanks. Her words trail off. Sabotage is tempting, but the pigeon's role is eyes, not fire. Still, the intelligence could guide RAF strikes, turning whispers into thunder. They compose the message in code, simple substitutions. Dates as saints' feast days, on onion skin paper no thicker than a vein. Elise seals it with wax, her seamstress fingers deft, then fits it into the capsule of a Homer named Greywing, a veteran bird with scarred wings from a prior flight. Outside, the patrol's shadow looms larger. Obergefreiter Klaus Becker, promoted for his vigilance, leads his squad through the lanes, the German shepherd straining ahead, its paws churning mud. Becker's scowl deepens under his steel helmet. The airborne debris reports from August have escalated into full alerts, unidentified crates, missing parachutes, and now faint coos reported by a farmer near the river. He's no fool. The RAF's tricks are legendary, from dummy paratroops to sabotage gadgets. His men, a mix of weary Lanza from the east and fresh-faced recruits, fan out with Mauser rifles at the ready, bayonets fixed. They knock on doors, demanding entry. Öffnen, routine inspection. In Jacques' bakery, they overturn sacks of flour, sneezing in the white clouds, but find only dough and despair. The baker sweats, his eyes flicking to the hidden loft in the oven alcove where 5 pigeons huddle. Becker's dog whines at Marie's gate, nose quivering at the faint avian musk seeping from the attic vents. She meets them at the door, basket of mending in hand, her face a mask of weary compliance. "Nothing here but a widow and her chores," she says in halting German, her accent thick. The beast paws the threshold, but Becker yanks it back. Orders specify no unnecessary searches in loyal villages, yet suspicion festers. He's noted the villagers' tighter clusters, the averted gazes. As they move on, kicking at a hedgerow, Pierre watches from a loft window, heart hammering. He slips out the back, racing to the church with warning. They're circling closer. Smelled something at Duval's. The basement erupts in urgent whispers. Father Laurent decides, accelerate releases, disperse birds to outlying farms. That afternoon, under a drizzling rain that slicks the paths, they act. Marie carries Greywing to the orchard's edge. The bird's wait light as a promise in her palm. Rain patters on the leaves, mingling with the scent of wet earth and rotting fruit. She whispers to it, "Fly true, little one," and launches it skyward. Wings beat furiously against the downpour, climbing into the grey, a silhouette against the clouds. Similar launches ripple through the network. Henri from his forge, a note on troop rotations. Elise from the schoolyard, details of ration diversions to Luftwaffe bases. By evening, a dozen birds take wing, their paths converging westward like veins to the heart. In the Maquis camps, deeper in the woods, the pigeons bridge the gap. Marie's son, Lucien, a lean 20-year-old with his mother's eyes, receives a pair from a runner. Hidden in a hollow tree, they carry messages of supply caches, ambushes plotted. "These saved us last raid," he tells his comrades around a smokeless fire, the birds pecking at breadcrumbs. One Homer, released with cords of a Gestapo safehouse, reaches London battered but intact, its capsule yielding gold, Vogel's itinerary, ripe for disruption. Back at MI-14, Commander Williams' team swells with activity. Pigeons arrive in flocks now, over 100 weekly, their legs a tattoo of intelligence. Decoders work through the night, steam rising from kettles as capsules pop open. Le Mesnil network, convoy confirmed, one reports, pinning fresh markers on the ops board. The data fuels decisions. A mosquito squadron vectors toward the Valley Bridge, bombs screaming down to scatter the half-tracks in flames. Williams smiles faintly, stroking a returning bird. "Wings of war," he murmurs. But losses mount. Hawks claim some, patrols others. A villager in Rouen betrays a loft, Gestapo torches blazing. In Le Mesnil the net tightens. December's gales howl, snow blanketing the bocage in white deceit. Becker's squad raids a barn, seizing crates and birds. 20 pigeons, throats slit for questioning though they yield nothing. Whispers of a collaborator circulate. Old Emile, the miller, eyed for his sudden prosperity. Father Laurent confronts him in the confessional, voice like judgment. "Choose your side, or hell claims you first." Emile weeps, swears loyalty, but trust frays. Marie, alone in her attic as midnight tolls, feeds the remnants. 30 birds now, their eyes fierce. A fresh drop is rumoured, more feathered allies from the sky, but Vogel's vans prowl the roads, headlights cutting the dark like knives. The network pulses, secrets soaring on fragile wings, but the Gestapo's grasp closes. One slip, and Le Mesnil's hopes scatter like feathers in the storm. Lucien sends word via a surviving bird. "Hold fast, D-Day whispers grow." The villagers cling, their defiance winged and unyielding, as winter's jaws snap shut. January 1944. The bocage of Normandy lies entombed in winter's iron grip. Hedgerows armoured in rime ice that cracks like rifle shots under the weight of patrols. Snow drifts against the stone walls of Le Mesnil, muffling the world in a deceptive hush, while the wind carries the acrid bite of wood smoke from chimneys rationed to stubs. In the Duval cottage, Marie kneels in the attic's gloom, her breath clouding the air as she sorts through the remnants of her loft. Only 22 pigeons remain now, their feathers fluffed against the cold, eyes sharp as obsidian in the lantern's wavering light. The scent of damp straw and faint ammonia lingers, a testament to the bird's endurance through gales that have felled lesser creatures. Outside, the village slumbers under curfew. But sleep is a luxury Marie can't afford, not with Vogel's Gestapo vans prowling the lanes like wolves scenting blood. You can feel the chill seeping through the floorboards, numbing your fingers as you imagine helping her tally the survivors. Serial numbers etched on leg rings, from 12 NERP to 89 NERP, each a survivor of the skies. Marie's son, Lucien's last message, delivered by a frost-rhymed bird 2 nights ago, burns in her mind. Raids intensify, need cords for drops, but replies are perilous now. The network frays at the edges. Emile the miller's wavering loyalty has sown doubt, and Becker's squad has netted 3 more birds from a careless cache in the woods, their interrogations yielding only squawks before the axe fell. Yet the Pigeons' successes echo in distant booms. RAF Lancasters, guided by prior dispatches, have cratered a rail bridge near Lisieux, starving German supplies and earning the villagers grim nods over meagre breakfasts. Dawn bleeds grey across the sky as Father Laurent convenes the core group in the church crypt, the air heavy with the must of ancient stone and melting candle drips. The priest's cassock hangs looser on his frame, hollowed by skipped meals, but his eyes burn with the fire of conviction. Jacques slumps in a corner, his baker's hands bandaged from a forge mishap. Henri's cover for sharpening maquis blades. Elise arrives last, snowflakes melting in her scarf, her schoolyard scouts whispering of fresh horrors, Vogel's men dragging families from homes in Caen, accusations of spying with birds scrawled on wanted posters fluttering from lampposts. Pierre, now wiry from hunger, clutches a small cage with 2 homers, their coos subdued as if sensing the gathering storm. "We adapt or perish," Father Laurent declares, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling like a litany. He sketches a new grid on the map, dividing the bocage into tighter cells. Marie's orchard for eastern watches, Jacques' bakery for road sentinels, outlying farms for dispersal. No more central releases. Each loft acts alone. Train decoy birds with false messages to mislead if captured. And Emile. Watch him. One wrong word, and we silence it ourselves. The group murmurs assent, the weight of vigilante justice settling uneasily. They compose urgent notes. Lucien's maquis needs ammo drop sites clear of flak. A battery of 105mm howitzers spotted near Arromanches, barrels glinting under tarps. Papers whisper under pencils, inked with berry juice for invisibility under heat, then rolled and capped. Elise selects a pigeon named Stormbeak, its plumage dappled like camouflage, and slips the capsule onto its leg with practiced care. Upstairs, the church's nave stands empty, pews scarred by boot marks from recent inspections. As the group disperses through hidden exits, crawl spaces beneath the altar, Pierre lingers, feeding Stormbeak a kernel of corn saved from his own plate. The bird nips his finger gently, a bond forged in shared peril. He carries it to the belfry under cover of Vesper's toll. The bells clang, masking his footsteps on the spiral stairs. Wind lashes through the open arches, carrying the tang of frozen river and distant sea salt. Pierre cups the pigeon, whispers a prayer borrowed from Father Laurent, and hurls it into the void. Wings snap open, beating against the gusts, the bird a fleeting shadow wheeling west before vanishing into the low clouds. Similar launches punctuate the day. Marie from her ridge, a note on U-boat patrols. Henri from the smithy's chimney, details of troop rotations at the coast. But the Gestapo's net draws inexorably tighter. Hauptsturmführer Erich Vogel, a sharp-featured Prussian in his 40s, with a dueling scar tracing his jaw, arrives in Le Mesnil that afternoon, his Mercedes idling like a predator outside the church. Tall and impeccable in his black uniform, leather coat gleaming with frost, Vogel steps out flanked by SS troopers, their MP-40 submachine guns slung low. He's no brute like the rumors suggest. His cruelty is surgical, honed in Warsaw ghettos, extracting confessions with whispers and wires. Becker reports to him in the village square. saluting crisply under the gaze of bundled villagers pretending at chores. Parachute traces confirmed, Herr Hauptsturmführer. And the dogs. They hit on avian scents in 3 homes. But the French are stubborn as mules. Vogel's lips curl in a thin smile, his breath fogging the air. Stubborn or clever? Bring the miller. Emile, yes? Let's see if loyalty has a price. They haul Emile from his grinding wheel, the old man's face ashen, flour dusting his beard like premature snow. In the back of the van, under the probe of a flashlight, Vogel leans close, voice silk over steel. You've prospered, Emile. Extra rations, a new cart. From whom? The birds that fall from heaven. Emile stammers denials, sweat beading despite the cold. But the pressure cracks him. Half-truths spill about stray pets in barns, directions to outlying lofts. Vogel nods, satisfied, and signals the raid. Chaos erupts as dusk falls. Vans screech to a halt, troopers kicking in doors with shouts of, "Raus! Heraus!" Marie hears the commotion from her kitchen, pots clattering as she hides the attic ladder behind a false panel. Her heart thunders like artillery as boots stomp below, Vogel's voice barking orders. The dog whines at the threshold, pawing the floorboards where feather traces linger. "Search the upper levels," Vogel commands, his eyes scanning the shadows. Marie presses against the wall, breath held as the attic trapdoor creaks open. Dust motes dance in the beam of a torch, illuminating the rafters. Empty now, birds dispersed to a neighbor's root cellar hours ago. The trooper swears, finding only straw and mouse droppings. "Nothing, Herr Hauptsturmführer." Vogel's gaze lingers on Marie as she feigns terror in the doorway, shawl clutched tight. A widow alone. How tragic. His tone drips sarcasm, but evidence eludes him. They seize Emile instead, dragging him screaming into the night, his betrayal sealed. In the bakery, Jacques fights back with a poker from the oven, cracking a trooper's helmet before subduing blows fell him. They torch a hayloft in the outskirts, flames leaping skyward like false signals, claiming 7 pigeons in the blaze. Father Laurent, barricaded in the crypt, smashes the map underfoot as troopers ransack the nave. But the core secrets endure, hidden in Bible hollows, memorized in chants. By midnight the vans depart, leaving Le Mesnil scarred. Emile vanished to Caen cells, Jacques bruised but defiant, 2 farms smouldering. In the church, under moonlight slanting through cracked stained glass, the survivors regroup. Marie arrives, face streaked with soot, carrying 3 birds salvaged from the chaos. "We lost 10, maybe more," she whispers, voice raw. Father Laurent kneels, crossing himself, but London hears us still. Lucian's drop. It's coming. Hold the line. Pierre releases a survivor from the steeple, its wings cutting the starry dark, bearing word of Vogel's raid. Gestapo sweeps, network intact but bleeding. Across the channel at MI14's lofts in a Kent farmhouse, handlers tend the influx, 80 birds this week alone, capsules brimming with peril's harvest. Commander Williams deciphers the latest, Le Mesnil raided, Vogel active, prioritize sabotage. Mosquitoes lift off at dawn, targeting Vogel's convoy on the Caen road, bombs blooming in fireballs that light the horizon. The villagers hear the echoes, fists clenched in the snow. Losses mount, but the wings persist, fragile, fierce, carrying defiance, one flutter at a time. As February's thaw threatens to unearth hidden graves, the network rebuilds, whispers turning to plans, the invasion's shadow lengthening over the frost-kissed fields. February 1944. The bocage awakens under a tentative thaw, hedgerows dripping with meltwater that pools in the ruts of Le Mesnil's lanes, like spilled ink, staining the earth black. Mud clings to boots like a living thing, sucking at every step, while the air hangs heavy with the rot of winter's decay. Thawed manure and sodden leaves mingling with the faint acrid smoke from smouldering ruins on the village edge. In the Duval cottage, Marie rises before first light, her joints aching from the cold that lingers in her bones, and climbs the attic ladder with a basket of scavenged seeds. The loft, rebuilt in haste after the raid, shelters 15 pigeons now, their soft coos a fragile hymn in the dimness. Feathers ruffle as she scatters the grain, the birds' beaks clicking like Morse code against the wooden slats. Outside, the world stirs. A cock crows defiantly, cartwheels groan under their loads, but the curfew's ghost enforces silence, broken only by the distant drone of patrols. You can sense the fragility in the air, taste the damp chill on your tongue as you picture yourself beside her, the lantern's flame flickering shadows across the rafters, scarred by hasty repairs. Marie's hands, scarred from thorns and toil, check each leg ring, survivors from the inferno, their eyes holding the wild gleam of those who have outflown death. Lucian's last dispatch, tucked in a Bible's pages, urges caution. Vogel doubles guards, Maquis strikes planned, birds key to cords. The raid cost them dearly. Emile gone, his mill a boarded-up shell, but it forged them sharper. Cells splintered into whispers, lofts buried deeper. Father Laurent's sermons now encode warnings, Bible verses masking drop sites, while Elise's children play spy games in the schoolyard, ears tuned to soldiers' chatter. By mid-morning, the church crypt pulses with subdued urgency, its stone walls weeping condensation like tears for the lost. Father Laurent presides over a smaller circle. Marie, Elise, Henri the blacksmith, his forge cold since the Gestapo smashed his tools, and Pierre, grown leaner, his boyish eagerness tempered by the raid's bruises. Jacques lies abed, ribs cracked, but sends word via a runner. Bakery watches hold, convoy sighted at dawn. The priest's face, etched deeper by shadows, unrolls a fresh map, its edges frayed from constant use. Red lines snake through the bocage, Vogel's patrol routes, gleaned from a risked glance at a captured roster, while blue dots mark surviving lofts, scattered like seeds in hostile soil. We bleed, but London bleeds them back, he says, voice a low rumble. The Thor exposes tracks, move birds at night, prioritize Maquis links. D-Day rumors swell from BBC static. Elise nods, her fingers twisting a threadbare scarf as she recounts the morning's gleanings. A fuel dump near the Orne River, guarded by 12 sentries and razor wire, barrels stacked under camouflage nets that sag with melt. Trucks from Rotterdam, high octane for panzers, she whispers, sketching it swiftly. Henri grunts approval, his massive hands cradling a salvaged capsule, testing its fit on a pigeon's leg. They draft the message in cipher, numbers for units, rivers for directions, on rice paper so thin it whispers like wind through reeds. Marie selects a Homer called Iron Wing, a battle-scarred cock with a notched tail from a falcon's graze, slipping the capsule home with a click that echoes her resolve. For Lucian, she murmurs, pocketing it for release at dusk. The occupation's vice tightens through the day. Hauptsturmführer Erich Vogel, ensconced in a requisitioned manor on Caen's outskirts, pores over reports in a room warmed by a hissing stove, maps spread like a general's feast. His scar twitches as he circles Le Mesnil, that stubborn hive where Emile cracked but yielded scraps. Avian spies, he sneers to Becker, now his reluctant adjutant, the Obergefreiter's uniform rumpled from sleepless nights. The English play at fables, but fables have feathers. Double the dogs, offer rewards for sightings, and watch the widow Duval, her eyes hide daggers. Becker salutes, hiding his unease. The raid netted birds, but no network, and the RAF's reprisals, a strafing run that shredded his convoy last week, sting like accusations. His squad, thinned by frostbite and desertions, fans out again, the German shepherd's paws churning mud as it sniffs barns and thickets, whining at phantom scents. In Le Mesnil, evasion becomes art. Pierre leads a decoy run, loosing 2 pigeons with blank capsules from a hedgerow gap, their wings flashing white to draw eyes while the real messengers wait in shadows. Marie tends her garden under watchful clouds, spade turning soil that reeks of peat and buried fears, her shawl concealing a bulge of hidden rings. By evening, as the sun dips blood-red behind the Norman hills, she slips to the orchard's fringe, the ground squelching underfoot, branches dripping like veins. Iron Wing stirs in her pocket, warm against her side. The air cools swiftly, carrying the tang of river mist and distant pine. She climbs a low rise, heart steadying with the ritual, and lifts the bird to the fading light. "Go, carry our fire," she breathes, launching it. Wings unfold with a snap, propelling Iron Wing into the wind, a grey streak climbing westward, dodging the first stars. Night falls like a shroud, but the network ignites. From Henri's root cellar, a note on flak emplacement soars. Elise from the school eaves whispers of V1 launches tested in secrecy. Pierre's decoys work. The shepherd bays at a false trail in the woods, drawing Vogel's men to a burned-out barn while true flights evade. In the Maquis depths, Lucien receives a brace of birds at a forest rendezvous, their capsules bursting with village gold. Patrol schedules. Ammo catches ripe for ambush. Around a peat fire, he reads by sparklight, comrades leaning in, rough men with stained guns slung, faces scarred by skirmishes. Le Mesnil holds, Lucien says, voice thick with pride. Mother's handiwork, we hit the dump tomorrow. Birds guide the strike. Across the channel at MI-14's Kent outpost, the feathered tide swells. Commander A.M. Williams, sleeves rolled amid the coo of lofts, oversees the harvest, over 90 arrivals this cycle, legs tattooed with secrets. Handlers, in oilskins against the damp, pluck capsules under shaded lamps, decoders hunched like monks over scrolls. "On fuel, priority," one calls, pinning it to the board where Normandy's web tightens. Williams nods, his ornithologist's eye tracing a bird's flight scars. "Villagers' valor," he mutters. The intel cascades, SOE plots diversions, RAF Wellingtons pound the dump under cover of cloud, explosions blooming like poppies in the night. Le Mesnil feels the tremors miles away, villagers pausing in their labors, smiles cracking frozen lips. Yet peril circles closer. Vogel, tipped by a coerced informant in Rouen, a baker's cousin with a grudge, dispatches a night raid on Le Mesnil's fringes. Black sedans glide silent at moonrise, SS men fanning out with silenced pistols and searchlights that stab the dark like accusations. They strike a outlying farm, bursting through the door to find a loft of 8 pigeons, crates splintering under boots. The farmer, old Renault, resists with a pitchfork, earning a bullet's bite, his cries echoing as birds flutter in panic. 3 escape into the night, capsules intact, the rest perish in flames, the blaze a beacon drawing Becker's squad. "It's unraveling," Becker whispers to a trooper, stamping out embers, the scent of charred feathers choking the air. Dawn reveals the toll. Renaud's body in the yard, snowmelt pink with blood, whispers rippling through Le Mesnil like wind through reeds. Father Laurent buries him in unconsecrated ground, the crypt emptying as fear bites deeper. Marie gathers the survivors, 13 now, Iron Wing's flight confirmed by a Maquis runner's nod, and reinforces the loft with false walls of sacking. Elise's scouts report Vogel's fury. Posters promising 500 francs for pigeon nests, dogs kennelled in the square. Pierre, scouting the roads, narrowly dodges a checkpoint, heart pounding as he dives into a ditch, mud caking his face. By week's end, the thaw yields to rain, lashing the bocage in sheets that turn paths to rivers. Marie releases another from her ridge, the bird battling gusts, its message urgent. Vogel raids escalate, need arms for defense. In London it arrives sodden but whole, fueling a daring drop, canisters parachuting into Mackie's hands, Sten guns and grenades to arm the shadows. Lucian strikes the fuel dump that night, flames roaring skyward, Vogel's howls of rage carried on the wind. The villagers hear it, fists raised in the downpour, the pigeons' wings weaving victory from despair. But March looms, invasion whispers turning to roars, and Vogel's hunters close in. One more raid, and the feathered chain might snap, leaving Le Mesnil's secrets earthbound in the mud. March 1944. Rain lashes the bocage like a vengeful lash, turning Le Mesnil's lanes into quagmires that swallow boot heels and horse carts alike. The air thick with the metallic tang of wet iron and blooming earth. Mud splatters the skirts of villagers hurrying between chores, their faces gaunt masks under hooded shawls, while the distant thunder of artillery practice rolls from the coast like the growl of an awakening beast. In the Duval cottage, Marie crouches in the attic's stifling dimness. The lantern's oily smoke curling toward the rafters where 11 pigeons huddle, their feathers slick and iridescent under the faint glow. The scent of sodden straw and unwashed wool clings to everything, a reminder of nights spent mending hides and whispering codes. Outside, the wind howls through cracks in the thatch, rattling shutters like bones in a grave. But inside, Marie's hands move with quiet precision, checking capsules and scattering the last of her barley ration. You can almost hear the drip of water from the eaves, feel the chill draft snaking up your spine as you kneel beside her, the bird's soft coos, a counterpoint to the storm's fury. Lucian's runners brought word yesterday, Maquis strikes multiplying. Arms from the latest drop turning shadows into fighters, but the cost mounts. Renault's death haunts the village, his farm a charred scar, and Vogel's posters flap from every fence post, promising death for traitors with wings. Marie selects a Homer named Dawnflight, its leg ring scarred from a prior gale, and slips a message inside. Coordinates for a coastal battery, guns swiveling like blind eyes toward the channel. For the dawn, she whispers, tucking it away for release at twilight, her breath steady despite the knot in her chest. By noon, the church crypt hums with frayed defiance, its damp walls slick with seepage that pools at your feet like spilled secrets. Father Laurent gathers the remnants, Marie, Elise with her ink-stained fingers, Henri nursing a bandaged arm from a scuffle with looters, and Pierre, whose youthful frame now carries the weight of sentry shifts. Jacques, recovered enough to hobble in, bears a loaf baked with hidden grit for the birds. The priest's voice cuts through the patter of rain on the hatch above, low and fervent as a confession. Vogel's men circle like crows, but the thaw bears their tracks as much as ours. We've lost lofts, brothers, but London strikes where we point. Prioritize the beaches. Scouts report barges massing at Arromanches, engineers digging pillboxes under floodlights. He traces the map's coastal fringe, fingers trembling slightly, blue lines weaving through German strongpoints like veins pulsing toward invasion. Elise nods, her voice a thread in the gloom. Children saw it, ATT Bleilisme flak on the dunes, crews drilling through the night, and whispers from Caen, Rommel inspects the wall tomorrow. They scribble furiously, ciphers blooming on scraps, saints for dates, crops for troops, rivers for roots. Henri fits the capsules, his blacksmith's grip gentle on the fragile aluminum, while Pierre feeds the birds from his palm, their beaks warm against his skin. The air tastes of salt from the rising mist, carried inland on gusts that rattle the crypt door. As the group disperses into the downpour, cloaks drawn tight, Marie slips Dawnflight into her bodice, the bird's heartbeat syncing with her own. The Gestapo's shadow falls heavier that afternoon. Hauptsturmführer Erich Vogel, rain beading on his peaked cap like jewels of malice, directs operations from a commandeered inn at the village edge, its taproom reeking of stale beer and cigarette ash. Maps sprawl across tables, red pins stabbing Normandy's heart, while Becker, stands at attention, his face haggard under stubble, the shepherd at his heels, whining from the wet. "The raids yield scraps, Herr Hauptsturmführer," Becker reports, voice edged with fatigue. "Birds in the woods, but no nests. The French vanish like smoke." Vogel's scar gleams white as he leans forward, eyes like polished flint. Smoke leaves embers. Interrogate the schoolteacher. Her brats see too much. And the dogs, loose them on the orchards at dusk. Rewards double, bread for feathers, gold for lofts. He snaps his fingers, and troopers scatter into the storm, rifles slung against the torrent, boots churning mud to froth. In Le Mesnil, the chase ignites. The shepherd's bay echoes through the hedgerows as Vogel's men comb the fringes, lanterns swinging like pendulums in the gloom. Elise barricades her door, schoolbooks piled as shields, but a kick splinters the wood. SS boots thunder in, overturning desks in a frenzy of splintered oak and scattered chalk. "Where are the birds, Fräulein?" A trooper snarls, bayonet prodding shadows. She feigns tears, stammering of stray pigeons from the market, but the dog sniffs her apron, whining at feather traces from a morning feed. They drag her to the square, rain sheeting down, villagers peering from windows with hearts in throats. Marie hears the shouts from her ridge, the release site a half-mile trek through whipping branches that lash like whips. Mud sucks at her ankles, soaking her skirts, the bird warm and fluttering against her ribs. She reaches the overlook as thunder cracks, the valley below a blur of lights, lanterns bobbing like will-o'-the-wisps toward Elise's home. No time for caution. She cups Dawnflight, whispers a blessing stolen from the church, and hurls it skyward. Wings beat against the gale, the pigeon climbing in erratic spirals, a grey phantom swallowed by clouds. Marie turns back, pulse roaring, only to spot shadows closing. Becker's squad cutting her off at the path's fork. "Halt!" Becker bellows, his Mauser levelled, rain streaming from his helmet. The dog lunges, teeth bared, but Marie bolts into the thicket, thorns tearing her shawl as she dives under a fallen log. Shots crack the air, bullets whining off bark, the scent of cordite sharp over the petrichor. She crawls through brambles, mud caking her face, lungs burning, until the undergrowth swallows her. In the square, Elise endures Vogel's glare under a dripping awning, his questions probing like scalpels. Pigeons for London, messages on wings. But she spits defiance, earning a backhand that splits her lip. They release her at midnight, battered but unbroken, the dog led away, empty-nosed. Night deepens the village's wounds, but the network endures. From hidden perches, more birds take flight. Pierre from a barn loft, details of Rommel's route. Henri from the riverbank, barge counts under cover of fog. Lucien's Maquis, fueled by the arms drop, ambushes a patrol on the Caen road. Sten guns chattering in the dark, Vogel's screams of outrage echoing back. In the crypt at false dawn, the survivors huddle. Marie returned, scratched and shivering, Elise with a swollen jaw, sharing nods over candlelight. Father Laurent binds wounds with strips from altar cloths. The thaw brings flood, but also the tide. Hold, one more push. Across the channel, at MI-14's bustling lofts in Dover's cliffs, the feathered storm breaks. Commander A.M. Williams, amid the clamour of handlers and whirring decoders, watches as baskets overflow. Over 100 pigeons this night. Sodden wings folding as capsules yield their bounty. Le Mesnil, batteries confirmed, a clerk announces, voice rising over the coups. Williams pins the intel to the master map. Normandy's defences laid bare like a dissected corpse, flak nests, minefields, the Atlantic wall's veins exposed. To chafe, he orders, the reports racing to Eisenhower's planners, shaping the greatest armada. Mosquitoes and typhoons lift off at first light, guided by pigeon eyes, bombs cratering dunes and scattering crews in plumes of sand and fire. April bleeds into May, the rains easing to reveal green shoots piercing the mud, a promise stirring in the bocage. Le Mesnil rebuilds in whispers, lofts in root cellars, codes in laundry lines. Vogel's raids, blunted by Mackie, hits that thin his ranks. Becker deserts in the chaos, vanishing into the woods with a muttered curse, his dog trailing like a ghost. On June 5th, as stars wheel over the village, Marie releases the last of her birds from the church steeple. The message simple: we wait for the storm. Dawnflight's kin soars west, joining thousands in the aerial post. June 6, 1944. The sky over Normandy erupts in thunderous roar, gliders and parachutes blotting the stars, the sea a churn of landing craft, vomiting troops onto bloodied sands. Le Mesnil shakes as Allied columns push inland, panzers rumbling in futile counter, the air alive with the scream of shells and the chatter of victory. Marie stands on her ridge, wind whipping her hair, watching the horizon blaze, Omaha's cliffs crumbling, Utah's fields awash in liberators. Father Laurent rings the bells unchecked, peals shattering the curfew forever. Lucien emerges from the maquis, embracing his mother amid the rubble, his face alight. "The birds brought them," he says, voice breaking. Vogel flees in a staff car, strafed to wreckage by a P-51, his empire of fear dissolving in smoke. In London, Williams toasts the loft survivors. Operation Columba's 16,000 wings, credited in hushed annals for tipping the scales, secrets that saved lives, pierced the wall. Le Mesnil blooms in the aftermath, pigeons released to wild skies, their coos fading into peace. Marie tends a garden now free of shadows, the hedgerows whispering of wings that carried a nation's soul across the storm.